I have no idea how I was planning on starting this, but I'm excited to start it.
That's always a
Thank you.
start.
So, with that in mind, welcome aboard the Funny Boat Podcast. I am your host, Captain Boomies. Ahoy, ahoy. With me is the broker with the beard. How are you doing, Ed?
Oh, Captain Boomies, I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Well, I had an impossibly good day. I got to go check out a brand new boat.
Oh, was this the 60-footer you were talking
No,
about?
unfortunately, that one fell through. But I did get to go
Oh,
peek at another boat as part of a sneak peek to the Bay Bridge Boat Show. I have no idea how they're letting me get away with this, but it's really fun. Anyway, this boat is a
well,
brand
good.
new Hylas. And when they told me that, I was like, oh, it's a sailboat, right? A Hylas. And then I get there and I'm like, nope. That's not a sailboat. That's like a sexy, sexy picnic boat with
Nice.
twin outboards. I know.
Ooh,
Everything's an outboard now. But more
yeah.
surprisingly, this thing had two cocks.
So it's going to get a lot of attention at the show, I can
So
tell.
I'm sorry. I said that a little abruptly. It had two Cox diesel outboards, which are the coolest
Oh,
things. They're these monsters that sip diesel and give you outboard pushies. It's so awesome. I'm obsessed with these boats. And these outboards
wow.
are really fun and they give you the right kind of giddy up. It doesn't feel like when you put the throttle down on a diesel. It feels like when you put the throttle down on an outboard. It's weird.
It's got like an instant
Yeah.
kickback rather than that slow
Like that
build.
chugga 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 thing that happens.
Right.
But I love nerding out about boats, and it makes me very happy that I get to bring another boat lover in today instead of just a
Ooh.
creepy boat broker like you.
Here we go. Oh boy.
And even though I am very excited to see you at the boat show as well, I know you're going to be selling like a madman while you're there, and that's going to be fun.
That's the plan.
But that's besides the point. Today we are so lucky that we are going to get to talk to Wayne the boat guy, and we're going to talk all about his fabulous YouTube channel and how awesome it is that he basically pursued his boating. He followed his love of boats all the way to being a YouTube weirdo, just like the rest of us.
Good to have you on here,
Wayne, welcome
Wayne.
aboard.
Thank you, Captain. Appreciate it. And Ed the broker.
I understand. I totally understand. So Wayne is one of the lucky boaters that kind of never has had to deal with a broker. So tell me about your first boat, Wayne.
My first boat. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. My first boat, only bought that a few years ago. And Ed, had I known, I would have contacted you first because whenever we drove over to Cape St. Clair to spend like $1,500 on this 1976 Renken, 19-foot boat with an 85 Evinrude 90 horsepower on the back. I figured I probably needed to finance that through a broker and, have a lot of surveying done and all those kinds of things. No, actually,
Sure. I'm...
yeah, the exact opposite of that is what happened.
Yeah.
My wife and I moved we're from Maryland, always lived in Maryland. But the weird thing is we lived over in like Glen Burnie area,
Nice.
and nobody who we knew had a boat. Nobody. I had no friends with boats. We never went boating. None of our parents or anybody else went boating. And we're all so close to the water.
I'm
And
Yeah, Glen Burnie's got
yeah,
a lot of water.
well, no, there's no water in Glen Burnie. I mean, except for maybe flooded basements or something. But like, no real like. I mean, okay, yeah, you got like Marley Creek or Furnace Creek or whatever. And if you've ever been in those waters,
I have.
There's usually not a lot of boats in those waters.
Okay.
But anyway, so we moved to be much closer to the water. And the neighborhood we were in, when we moved here, I looked around and like everybody had a boat trailer in their driveway. Like everybody. And my wife and I were talking about it, and we were like, we probably should get a boat, like, and there's a marina literally half a block from our house. And so we're like, we probably should get a boat. And my wife says to me, she goes, well, what does a boat cost? And I'm like, it could cost anything. And she goes, well, just give me a ballpark. Like, how cheap could we get a boat? That was all I needed to know to be able to grab my phone and just start scrolling through. And I'm like, well, here's one for $1,500. And she was like, really, you can get a boat that cheap? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, yeah, but is it a good boat? And I'm like, I don't know anything about this.
I mean, for $1,500, I'm a little nervous for you. But like...
Right. So I actually...
I'm glad you said that, Kate.
So I actually looked at a couple other ads,
Okay.
and I found an ad, I think it was on Craigslist, and the description was really long. And the guy was selling it because he had bought another project boat that he was working on. And in the ad, he wrote this sentence, "This boat is a great knockabout boat for a first-time boater." And I thought,
Perfect.
a knockabout boat for a first-time boater.
Perfect.
Hello.
Perfect. So did you knock it around a bit, or?
Actually, no. We ended up... I didn't really have much problems with it once I learned how to start an old two-stroke outboard motor, which was an absolute nightmare to learn how to do. And I'm a guy who grew up around engines. I mean, I've owned cars like with chokes, like manual chokes on them. And I've owned cars where I had taken apart half of the carburetor and used to have to like pump on the gas just to like get it to start, like all kinds of crazy nonsense. And I could not get this engine to run to save my life. And when I would get it running,
Yeah.
we just didn't shut it off. Like we'd go out in the bay and just be like cruising around or whatever, but the whole time the engine's just going bup, 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 back there because I was scared to death to shut it off that I would never get it restarted. Somebody showed me how to keep it running, how to start it. And that was kind of one of the inspirations for making my videos. And the funniest story about this boat is that when I sold the boat to another guy who was a first-time boater, I told him, there's videos all over my YouTube channel about this boat. I walk you through everything with this boat. I have probably got a dozen videos about this boat. I told him everything that was wrong with it. I told him how hard it was to start and everything. And he didn't bother doing any homework, left it sit for like several months, and then went out one day. And I'm out to dinner, I think, and my phone rings, and it's him. And I'm at dinner, and we're in the middle of a conversation, and I see his number pop up, and I'm like, I'm not going to answer this. I get the voicemail. He left me a voicemail that he's in what he called the middle of the ocean, which he meant the bay. And
well, that's a new boater right there.
And he couldn't get the boat started. So he got the boat started at the pier, went out into the bay, and then couldn't get it restarted again, and decided to call me instead of the Coast Guard or towboat or anybody who really could actually have possibly helped him at the time, and called me.
Well, can I tell you why he did that? He must have watched some of your videos and he trusted you. You give such good information. I think he watched those. If I had you on speed dial, you better believe. Like, hey, this boat's making this weird noise. Can you?
Yep. He did make it back. So I did follow up with him, and he is still alive. He made it back from that journey. But yeah, I kept the message on my phone for like a year because because I was in such shock that this guy called me on a cell phone and is like, "Hey, hi, Wayne, I'm in the ocean and the boat won't start," and I'm like,
Man, what an adventure that guy had. I've never felt like
Yeah.
I'm lost at sea while I'm
Yeah.
puttering around the bay in a John boat.
"Yeah, yep."
God, that's such a better adventure. He's living the best life.
Yeah.
And here was the best thing I ever did with that boat
Okay.
was my son and I took a
Sold
trip.
it.
It was a great boat. It was a beast. But anyway, we took it to Ego Alley, and we parked right in Ego Alley. And it was a weekday, so hardly anybody else was there. But I took pictures of my boat parked in Ego Alley, and it was great because it's like, here's my $1,500 old
Oh.
boat parked amongst all of these fantastic looking boats.
So, so for those who don't know Annapolis and the Chesapeake Bay,
Oh, yeah,
Ego Alley is where all of the very sexy yachts and big boats in the Chesapeake Bay go to show off, and they twirl around downtown Annapolis in this very skinny channel, and they're like millions and millions upon millions of dollars. And here's a two-stroke.
Typically.
My 19-foot Rankin, and it was like orange and white too. It was beautiful.
Sherbet
nice.
colors. I love it.
Yeah.
I get this vision, Wayne, like Washington crossing the Delaware with your foot up on the bow, kind of looking out.
It was great. And I'm replacing. Well, I have a few other boats now, but Ed, I recently purchased a Boston Whaler, and once again, I apologize for not consulting you and your services beforehand. If you were buying a classic Boston Whaler Montauk, or maybe it's a Nauset, so 16, 17 foot, what would you recommend somebody do before they purchase a boat like that?
This is actually really stupid valuable. What do you recommend somebody do before they purchase a boat? Panic.
Man, no. I would put Wayne on speed dial. I would probably take it for a test run if you possibly could.
So you're assuming that this is a boat that is powered. Okay.
Okay. I would maybe specify that in the first call to the seller.
No.
So if I went to you and I said, "Hey, Ed, I'm thinking about buying this Whaler Nauset," you would just say, take it for a ride, and then I say, it doesn't have a motor. So
you might want to when did this purchase happen?
Well, recently, yeah.
I would probably want to source outboards.
So
or price it up anyway.
So okay, but let's just say instead of that, Luke McFadden, who also has a YouTube channel,
The TikTok grabber.
Yes, the TikTok
Love
grabber.
that guy.
Yeah.
1.5 million followers on TikTok.
The scooter fisherman with the magnet
calls me up and he says, "Hey, I got a deal for you." And I said, "Okay, I'm listening." And he said, "Would you like a Boston Whaler?" And I thought, well,
You can't go wrong with a Boston Whaler.
wouldn't?
That was always what I thought.
They're unsinkable.
exactly. I've been to the boat show. I've seen the little half of one sitting there with a foam, and they're just floating in the water. And I always think, hey, that's the Whaler I could afford. And so I thought, unsinkable. It's a Boston Whaler. They have a great reputation. They've been making boats forever. And he tells me it's a 17-foot Montauk. He lied. Well, no, we didn't know.
He was misinformed.
we didn't
Somebody
know.
lied to him. Somebody lied
goat.
to him. Okay. I will not have you besmirch Mr. Crab Pants himself.
It was about 17 feet. And we believe me, we both thought it was possibly a Montauk. But anyway, he mentioned it, and he explained what he was doing. He was buying a trailer, but he didn't need the boat. And he's like, "Hey, if you'd like to," he said, blah blah blah. And I'm like, "I'm there." just, yeah, sign me up. I'll be right over. And so I raced over there and said, yeah, I'll take it because it's a whaler. Now, granted, it's completely saturated, the foam, and there's cracks in the floor, and there is no hardware on the boat whatsoever. And it has been
Mm-hmm.
patched by elementary school kids hundreds of times.
What-
I've seen this boat, Ed, and I
Yeah.
need you to understand what's happened
Thinking,
here.
is this
So I was
Is this-
totally with him. I was like, yeah, it's a whaler. How could you possibly go wrong?
Go
Like
wrong,
they
right?
they just live forever. I've never seen one die. And then there's the exception to the rule. This
So
one,
this one was on life support,
this
maybe.
one was on life support. It
And
was-
I don't know if it's life support, really. I mean, this one's basically it's done. Its life is over. It was so Mr. Trash Wheel in Baltimore. So there are these trash wheels in Baltimore, and I guess they have them in some other cities now. And basically, it's like a self-running thing to like suck trash out of harbors. It's a great thing. They used this to work on Mr. Trash Wheel, and before that, I think it was like a lighthouse tender. It's been a work boat for like 30 years
Right.
and treated as such. And then
Yeah.
somebody's like, spare fishing boat. It came with fishing rods. That's probably the most valuable thing that it came with. I don't know how to use
Well,
them
see-
because I don't fish, but yeah. So
See, Wayne, this is where the broker expertise would come into play.
that's what I was hoping. Yep.
Because it's not so much what you have that you see, it's what you don't see. What you don't see is all of the advertisement opportunity for Life Seal and Flex Seal that you now have. I think you might have some sponsorship opportunities here.
Yep.
Oh my
I-
God. So
I've been having some conversations with people recently, and I've made a few videos featuring this boat, and I'll just say there's going to be more videos with this boat in the future, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm so excited. If
I'm
you
thinking-
haven't, you need to go check out Wayne the Boat Guy. He really is up to all kinds of fabulous shenanigans over there. And I was surprised to find out how you haven't been doing it that long. Like,
No, so that first boat, that Rankin, we bought that in October of 2018, and
wow.
that was my first boat. I was in my 50s. And anybody who's from Maryland, so you are actually a captain, is that correct?
Yes, I
a
am.
real, legit captain.
I got my little paperwork right
Oh,
here.
Yeah.
Now, technically, any person who is the one operating the vessel is the captain, technically, right?
Sure. And in fact, they don't even call it a captain's license. They actually call it
Right.
a master of whatever vessel type you're allowed to run. They don't, or an operator of a passenger vessel. It's not a captain's license. That's just an honorific. And I'm happy to call anybody captain that wants it, especially if they're wearing the hat.
with the scrambled eggs on the brim.
Yeah.
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 So, also in the state of Maryland, in order to operate a boat, if you were born after a certain date in 1972 or 3, I think it is,
74.
74, you have to take a boater safety class. However, when you're really old like me, you're grandfathered in, even if you know absolutely nothing, which, honest truth, my daughter went with me the first time I took the Rankin out, and we're heading out of our creek, and I knew so little about boating that I saw the green and the red buoy.
Yeah.
And my plan was to follow the other boats and do what they do.
Okay.
On this particular day, nobody was out on the water. Nobody was leaving my creek to go out onto the Magathie River. Nobody. It was a weekday. I picked a weekday because less traffic, but I didn't realize there would be literally nobody going out in their boat or coming in. So we're going out the creek, and I see the green buoy and the red buoy, and I said to my daughter, "Can you look up on your phone what we're supposed to do when we see these green and red buoys? I don't know what to do." Because I didn't.
Oh my God.
I had no clue. So you know what I did? As she was trying to look this up, because of course, once again, we didn't even know how to spell buoy. And
It is an
she's
ugly
looking
spelling.
this up on her phone, and I'm getting closer and closer to it because I couldn't apply the brakes to the boat at all, and I had not found, I still haven't found the brake. I really haven't. I don't know how you stop a boat other than running into things. But so my choice was, I thought the green and the red buoys were probably to mark the area you're not supposed to go. And the best thing to do would be to go around the outside of it.
Oh, oh, goodness gracious. So, okay, we might have some new boaters out there. And to you, darling, darling dears, I just got to tell you a little ditty. And then you can buy the t-shirt from Wayne.
Take a boater safety course. Take a boater safety course.
Take your
That's right.
boating safety course, and then
Yes.
understand the expression "red right returning." And then,
If you're in Maryland or America,
well,
whatever,
if
yeah.
you're in any
You're-
zone A that is under the regulations of, never mind.
Yeah. Because other areas,
It takes a
it's
while.
the opposite for some. But either way, you go
Yeah.
between the buoys.
Yes.
You go between them.
Well,
I
I loved your strategy, though. I loved your strategy was to follow the other boaters, because I have absolutely used that strategy when
Sure. Right.
when heading into places that I don't necessarily know. I'm like, oh, that's a similar size and type of boat that I am. I should probably follow them because they might know something I don't. Or
Match
at
their
least I
speed
know
and- yeah.
when they run aground, I won't.
Right. Yep.
And that's better than what I thought you were going to say, Wayne. I thought you were going to stop when you got close to the red buoy.
And wait for it to turn green like a light.
Wait till you drifted to the green one and then start again.
Yep.
Your
Treat 'em like
mind,
traffic lights.
your mind
Yeah.
is amazing, Ed.
I know.
So we got extremely lucky that we didn't run aground because we were in a creek, and that red and green buoy, the green buoy was pretty close to the shore. And as I squeezed between that and the shore, that's when it dawned on me. I was like, maybe I should have gone on the other side of the green marker, which is what I think I referred to it at the time as a green marker because I didn't know it was a buoy.
No.
Mm.
But yeah, so I've been very lucky. We always took it all very slow and went out a little at a time, and I would try to ask people. But the hard thing, and this is kind of where I guess my channel and a lot of my content falls, is the fact that boaters seem to fall in two categories. They're usually lifelong people who love boating. They're lifelong sailors, or they grew up around boats. They grew up in an area where there's a lot of boating going on. Or they're an older adult who says, hey, I should just go get a boat. And they do what I did. And there are plenty of boaters who are willing to share their expertise and their knowledge. But if you don't know them and don't know where to find them, they don't just show up when you're at the marina and you're sitting there going, I wonder which way I should go. They don't pop out of the woodwork. Because when I couldn't get that boat started, I was looking for somebody to show me how to start an outboard engine because I was losing my mind. And my daughter still has not recovered from that experience.
Oh God.
You know,
She'll get over it.
sure.
It builds character. That's what I say about my
It
kids.
builds
Hey, it builds
character.
character.
Well, that's there's that T-shirt that's saying, I apologize for what I said at the boat ramp, and that was one of those days because I was telling her, I was like, we got it in the water. I was so worried that I was going to, not launch it correctly, and
It's a scary thing.
I watched like 20 videos and read stuff and looked things up for how to launch the boat, and we did it just fine. And then we're sitting there drifting, I'm going to allude to your short video that you put out today on Instagram, by the way. She had this great video talking about the fact that you can throttle the boat while you're tied off.
In fact, you
You
should.
don't do it with a car, right? You don't do it with a car. It's a fantastic idea. You made a great short video, by the way. It was awesome, and I commented on it. I think I saw it on Instagram, and I hope you put it out on all of the other things because it was a very good video. Because we don't think about the fact that a boat is so different from a car. You can throttle it up while you're tied off, and all you're going to do is churn up a little bit of water. You're not hurting anything. You're not spinning the tires.
No, you're only helping yourself.
Yeah.
In fact, it'll tell you a lot about a boat just being at the dock and putting it in gear and taking it out of gear. I mean, I usually can tell what kind of prop walk I've got while still tied to the dock if there's enough slack in the... Prop walk is the tendency of a boat to pull to one side or the other based on the rotation of the propeller.
Or like the first...
You got a lot of water.
This is hard because it's so interesting to me that you're such a new boater and yet you sound like somebody I can jump right into the deep end with. And that's why I'm so surprised at how quickly you amassed such an impressive amount of information. And then I love that you put it all out there for other people to absorb in such a fun and delightful way. Like,
Appreciate that. Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
really
That's
great.
right.
However,
Uh-oh. Here you go, Wayne. Welcome to the club, buddy.
I've got my grape juice. I'm drinking my grape juice. Go ahead.
however, I asked you about boat shows and you said, "Oh no, I don't do boat shows." But we've talked about boat shows a little bit already. You said you have done boat shows, but you don't anymore. And I have a problem. Like, I have to go to boat shows. I'm obsessed with them. I need them in my life. I get real itchy if I don't get to go to the boat show. People have to hear about it. I think we haven't had an episode yet where we didn't talk about boat shows.
Yeah, like
Right. I was just thinking the
Boots
same
is the
thing.
one that you want to go to is Boots in Germany or something.
Send me there, people. But you're not into it, and I'm dying to know why, because I don't think you're alone. I think there's other boaters that are not into it.
Yeah, so here's what I have found, and it might be different in other areas of the country. Like maybe a boat show in Missouri might be very, very different because
Yeah, it is.
okay, there we go. Have you been to one in Missouri? Okay.
No.
It would make no sense. Why would they do that?
Because they don't need brokers for their 10-foot aluminum John boats. So the interesting thing about boat shows, when I went the first time, I thought, I'm so excited to see what there is for all kinds of boaters. And I was thinking that there might be some things for a person who is just looking for like a 12-foot aluminum boat to take out onto a pond and do stuff. Like maybe they'd have some cool, nifty little anchors and some giveaways and, show John boat seats or whatever. And no, it's really big boats, really nice boats, yachts, a lot of high-end equipment and things for those boats, sailboats. Well, I didn't even go to the sailboat show because that's a whole other planet.
That is a whole other planet.
But the only things I could find that were like reasonably priced weren't even that reasonably priced. They were like the high-end pedal fishing kayaks that were like a few $1,000s. And I'm thinking every boat in my yard doesn't total up to be a few $1,000s. I mean, right now I've got 4 boats in my yard and 3 of them cost me less than $500 each. Yeah. Oh, and I think I have 4 outboard motors, and total invested in those 4 outboard motors is $600 total.
And that was just for the starting point.
No, 2 of them run, and 3 of them will run very soon.
Okay.
And but so what I realized was that for the people who just like to go out in a cheap boat and go out and do a little bit of fishing by themselves, go out on lakes and in the streams and out here on the Magathie River, that there's a lot of those people, they don't go to boat shows. And I actually did a poll on my YouTube channel after I went to the boat show, and I kind of made a video sort of saying like, hey, I kind of was disappointed there wasn't anything for budget boaters, like real budget boaters, people who are looking to spend things that don't have commas in them. And most of my audience was like, yeah, the poll was like, yeah, we don't go to those things. There's nothing there for us. And it's interesting because it's sort of like, when people talk about an entry-level house, right? Anybody who owns a home, they know what an entry-level house is. But people who've only lived in apartments, like to them, an entry-level house, like it might as well be a mansion, you know what I mean? Because they don't have the means or in their mind to put all of those resources into a single family home somewhere. And boating is there's all these different tiers, and there's a whole lot of boaters and a whole lot of boats and a whole lot of boating that goes on in this tier where you look around and somebody will have 2 boats in their driveway, and none of the boats are newer than 30 years old, and their biggest outboard motor is 30 horsepower, and it's a 2-stroke, and it's one that anybody else would just throw in the dumpster, and that's what this guy runs and goes fishing every weekend with. And it's very eye-opening.
I think that you're not wrong. I think there's something missing in boat shows that is exclusionary to what most of my life growing up I got to play with little tiny boats that like my uncle had on a lake out here, and it wasn't until I was older that I got to start really seeing bigger and more exciting boats and really understanding boat shows from a different angle, which was, hey, I go to boat shows because there's new weird things that I'm going to see on used boats in 10 years.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And I love that, and I get very excited about it, but also because I get paid to drive the brand new ones as well. So it's a
awesome.
little of both.
Yeah, that's living the dream right there. Like the you got to recently drive one with the 2 new diesels, and I saw those diesels at the first time a year ago at the boat show in Annapolis.
Yeah, I got to drive a boat with twin cocks.
Right.
It's great.
COX brand diesel engines.
COX brand diesel engines. Diesel outboards. They're very cool, and I highly recommend you go check them out. And yeah, go ahead.
So I would say, Wayne, that I was at the St. Petersburg boat show down in Florida, and they had not the $500 or $1,000 boat, for sale, but they did have. I was really surprised. Not only did they have all the larger power boats, and they had a 64-foot. It had 5 outboards, center console, $2.4 million boat. I mean, gorgeous. But then you had your sailboats too, especially some really nice Bavaria ones. And they also had on land a large selection of new trailered boats. And they were, the fiberglass center consoles, but they also had quite a few of the Lunds and the V-style aluminum boats, which I was personally, as a broker, I was surprised to see those there, but there is that market. And you joked about Missouri. I do know that the Midwest, Tennessee, the states that have a lot of boating there, but it's more lake and river boating, there are a lot of boat shows. And I hate to say that I've never been to the Timonium Boat Show.
I was there this year.
It's
which
good.
Okay, so I was thinking maybe that's a venue that would lend itself more to your clientele or your viewers than maybe Annapolis.
So
I don't
I
know.
went to the Timonium Boat Show because I wanted to see if that possibly would be. And for people who aren't from this area, Annapolis.
Annapolis is the
Maryland-
monster of boating mecca in the United States.
Yeah, and I mean, isn't Annapolis the sailboat capital of the world or
Look,
the U.S.? Or
anybody, any of like the Kiwis are gonna yell at you and say you're wrong about that. So like, don't just.
I'm here to be
The
controversial.
French
so,
are extra gonna hate you.
So Annapolis is the universal biggest sailboat community ever, undisputed. Matter of fact, Europe, I don't even know if they have sailboats in Europe. They only have them in Annapolis. Annapolis is the only place for sailboats. Anybody who disagrees, please put it in the comments below and educate me, because I don't think they sell sailboats in the rest of the world. I'm pretty sure they just don't. They don't even know what a boat is, I'm thinking.
Oh my God. Now that we're in trouble,
boy.
you were saying.
Yeah. I'm here.
Here we
I'm
go.
here for that. I'll take the flag. No, Maryland is a very big boating area, and I actually thought maybe that the Timonium Boat Show, like you said, Ed, would might be more of a, I don't want to say lower class, but just sort of more like entry-level boats, smaller boats. And my wife and I went as doing what you were talking about, Captain, which is going to see what kind of boat we'll get in 10 years, because we want to upgrade our big boat and we want to buy a used one. So we wanted to see what was out now and what we would buy in 10 years. And I was also looking for smaller boats, and there literally was nothing under like 22 feet there, which I was surprised about. There was a couple small outboards, but they were just there for show. And there weren't any smaller boats. And the really interesting thing, and I've gotten in trouble for this on my channel, is that I made the observation there and in other places that inboard outboard motors are dead, that they're gone, that they're no more, because outboards are now much more powerful, like the diesels that you were talking about, but also just 25 years ago, you could not get a 400 horsepower outboard motor. The biggest thing you could get was like maybe a 225 two-stroke Johnson. That was the biggest outboard you could buy. And now you can load like that. I think that one you were talking about was probably the HBS Strela or something like that. Yeah, you can put 600 horsepower, 5 of those or 6 of those in the back.
Yep.
And so I've made observations about that. And I know that Four Winds, Sea Ray, all these brands who used to only sell inboard, outboard, or stern drive boats now are selling ones with outboards as an option. But in Missouri and in other areas in the middle of the country where there's a lot of lake boaters, inboard, outboard boats are still very popular. I didn't know that, and a lot of people have enlightened me to that fact, because I'll say, hey, they're going away, this is the end, and they're like, not where I'm at, I'm on Lake Havasu, and everybody has an inboard outboard, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that.
Well,
so it's yeah,
so it's fun. So here's the problem with boat shows and most people's experience of boat shows, and I'm going to tell you how to fix it. Right? I know, because let me tell you, I have not been dealing with as many IOs, and when I had to deal with an inboard outboard bellows replacement, I had a lot of questions. And the best place for me to get those answers was to show up to a boat show and harass all of the yards that are also at the boat show, because they send their guys there and they'll answer questions because they're stuck in a booth and they have to talk to you anyway. And then I'll go and I'll talk to a couple brokers and I'll ask them questions about like, hey, you guys used to sell this type of boat some years ago. Can you tell me what people are saying about it as they owned them over the years? And I see it as a place to just latch on to people that are trapped in booths and suck information out of them. And I can get very specific, and that is my truly favorite part of boat shows. Yes, there's new stuff coming, and I get excited about being ahead on trends just because I am a boat nerd. But I honestly use it as an opportunity to learn things that I am coming up against in my actual boating practice. And my boating practice these days is a lot of smaller, weirder, crappier boats. Because that's what I'm going after, because it makes for some good content.
Have I told you about my whaler? You were asking about crappy boats.
It makes great content. It makes freaking great content. The stories that you get from an adventurous boat. Like, this is what I'm after. I want to be in the ocean when I'm on the bay.
I will tell you, Wayne, when I was a dock master at my family's marina on the Eastern Shore, I had a 13-foot Boston whaler. Guaranteed it is saturated, waterlogged. Had, I think, a 9.9 Yamaha on it. And I have towed, moved, rescued every single boat in that marina.
With that boat?
With that boat and that engine. 50-foot Hatteras, not a problem.
Heck of a work boat.
I've done it all.
Like, that's very. I wonder if it's the same boat.
No, this one's.
I sold it to this crabbing kid.
Well, it's stretched from all the water. Now it's like almost 17 feet long. So
it's got sea monkeys inside of it.
There may end up being something posted somewhere later this summer about like probably the worst boat anybody's ever seen in the Chesapeake Bay being out there, because I may be out in the water in that boat in its
I'm excited
condition.
for the adventure. It's going to make for a great YouTube video, and invite me. I want to go. We'll test all of my safety equipment.
We will have to. Yes. It won't be a test. We will be using it and deploying it.
Oh my goodness, this has been so much fun. Once again, I want to tell everybody, go find Wayne on YouTube. His videos are so valuable because he is taking you through the thought process of learning all the stuff you need to learn to understand boats and get yourself to be a better boater. And I'm so impressed by that, and I really love it. I should I'm going to check in with Ed here and just make sure I didn't totally poop on his party, but I'm going to wrap this up otherwise.
No, I think we're good. We had a good time. It was enjoyable hearing all about, taking the beatings and the lashings that the brokers typically do. So
we appreciate you, Ed. You handle it very well, because we need to get this anger out somehow. And
right. I'm just here to be of service.
Actually, you guys probably do provide a great service, don't you, for people who need to finance a boat? Because I was reading something that's a problem a lot of times, is being able to pay for larger boat purchases, especially if it's not something brand new. So
yep, we do. We try to connect the dots for everybody as best we can.
I didn't know up to Ed, because I might need to go over to Rock Hall sometime, and have a connection.
Hey, it's my town.
Oh, Ed's a pussycat. He'll forgive you. In any case, thank you all so much. This has been the Funny Boat Podcast, Bon Voyage. I really can't tell you how much fun this was. It was freaking great. Oh my God. I loved it so much. But I'm totally out of beer now.
Oh, what? Out of soda, you mean? I'm drinking juice. Right,
juice.
So,
Pirate juice. Got it.
Pirate juice. Pirate juice.